The 1857 rebellion is frequently framed as a singular spark, a spontaneous mutiny that caught the East India Company entirely off guard. This explosion was the culmination of a century defined by near-constant, localized warfare across the subcontinent. Mapping the conflicts between 1763 and 1856 reveals over 40 major uprisings, alongside hundreds of smaller revolts spanning from the Himalayas to the southern coasts. Colonial policies of aggressive wealth extraction, the displacement of traditional elites, and the destruction of forest ecosystems turned these regions into a volatile pressure cooker. To understand why 1857 reached such a scale, we have to look at the mechanics of the resistance movements that preceded it. Each of these 40 uprisings provided a blueprint for the eventual collapse of British control in 1857. The civil rebellions were led by the traditional order, deposed Rajas, ruined Samidars, and the military landlords of South India known as polygars. These elites revolted as the British administration stripped them of their lands and local authority, often because they could not meet the company's extreme revenue demands. Their strength came from a backbone of ruined artisans, soldiers from disbanded regional armies, and a peasantry pushed to the edge of survival. In Bengal, the British doubled land revenue collections in less than 30 years, far exceeding the highest rates ever recorded under the Mughals. This extraction led to a state of permanent crisis. 12 major famines devastated the population between 1770 and 1857. As the old social structure shattered, a new tier of outsiders moved in: British administrative officials, merchants, and moneylenders who took control of the land. The colonial police and legal systems facilitated this transition. Writing in 1859, British official William Edwards described the police as a scourge to the people. These rebellions were defined by a desire to return to the past. The leaders lacked a modern national vision, directing their violence toward restoring the familiar, semi-feudal order that the company had dismantled. While fierce, these early revolts remained geographically isolated, flaring up in the east, the south, and the west at different times. The Sannyasi revolt in the east saw displaced monks and soldiers wage guerrilla warfare against the company for over 30 years. Resistance continued with Dewan Velu Tampi's uprising in Travancore in 1805, followed by Kittur Chennamma's revolt in Karnataka in 1824. The British met these threats with total military suppression and the physical liquidation of the resistance leadership. After Velu Tampi's death, the British publicly hanged his body to ensure the message of total consequences reached the entire population. This brutal efficiency explains why 1857 was largely contained in the north. The south and west had already fought their wars and faced complete pacification decades earlier. A different and often more violent form of resistance emerged from India's forest regions. The British ended centuries of tribal isolation by seizing forest lands, banning traditional shifting cultivation, and taxing forest products. Colonial intrusion brought a trinity of exploitation into these lands: the trader, the moneylender, and the revenue farmer. These actors used British law to seize land and trap self-sustaining tribes in endless debt, transforming them into landless forced laborers. The tribes identified these exploitative outsiders by a specific name, the Diku. For the tribes, this was a total war for survival against the Dikus, far removed from the political restoration sought by civil elites. Tribal resistance was characterized by absolute ethnic solidarity, with entire populations mobilizing as a single unit. In 1855, the Santal Hool erupted between Bhagalpur and Rajmahal, triggered by interest rates reaching 500% and extreme police extortion. Brothers Sido and Kanhu mobilized 60,000 Santals, claiming divine orders to establish a rule of truth by expelling the British. Their strategy was precise. They allied with local blacksmiths and non-tribal milkmen, attacking only the Dikus. Later, in 1899, Birsa Munda led the Munda Ulgulan, famously declaring that the land would turn red with the blood of the Dikus. This was asymmetrical warfare. Tribal groups armed with axes and wooden arrows marched directly into the rifle fire of modern British infantry. Historian L.S.S. O'Malley recorded a scene of 45 Santals firing arrows from a mud hut until they were annihilated, ending only when a lone survivor charged the British lines with an axe. This immense bravery could not overcome the technological disparity. the tribal uprisings were consistently met with overwhelming slaughter. These movements represented two distinct paths of resistance: civil elites attempting to restore traditional hierarchies, and tribal populations fighting for indigenous sovereignty. Both were limited by their local focus and a lack of a unified pan-Indian vision. Since the British military successfully crushed these 40 uprisings, their long-term significance lies in the tradition they established. The frequency of these conflicts stripped away the pretense of a benevolent administration, revealing a colonial state built on systemic extraction and force. A century of local sacrifices forged a profound tradition of resistance across the subcontinent. The fires of resistance did not burn out. They provided the ideological bedrock for 1857 and the ultimate struggle for freedom.